Has had lived for 12,000 years. He had watched stars die. He had seen empires turn to dust. He had witnessed 17 civilizations rise to greatness and fall to nothing. In all that time, he had never felt surprise. He had never felt fear. He was a being of pure energy, a member of the eternal conclave, and such feelings belonged to lesser creatures. That changed on the day the humans came to fore. The war had been going on for 300 years. The Dominion, a race of conquerors with ships that blocked out suns, had been sweeping across the galaxy. World after world fell before them. Species after species became slaves or corpses. The conclave watched it all from their celestial thrones, as they always did. They did not interfere. They only observed. That was their way. That had always been their way. Four was a small colony world on the edge of known space. 40 million people lived there. Farmers, teachers, children, old people who had come to spend their final years watching purple sunsets over green fields. They were not soldiers. They were not warriors. They were just people trying to live simple lives. The Dominion fleet arrived on a cold morning. 400 warships filled the sky like a swarm of metal insects. Each ship was the size of a mountain. Each ship carried weapons that could turn cities to glass. The people of Four looked up and knew they were going to die. Has watched from the observation deck of the conclave station. His aide, a younger being named, stood beside him. They had seen this scene play out many times before. A weak world, a strong enemy, a quick ending. It was the way of the universe. The strong consumed the weak. That was the only law that mattered. The evacuation ships are too slow, said. They will not escape in time. Has nodded. The math was simple. The Dominion would reach the planet in 6 hours. The evacuation would take 8. Millions would die. It was sad, perhaps, but it was also inevitable. Then the sensors detected something strange. 18 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel between the Dominion fleet and the planet. They were small ships, crude ships. Their hulls were made of simple metal, not the living crystal that advanced species used. Their weapons were basic energy cannons, not the reality-bending devices that the Dominion carried. They looked like toys compared to the enemy fleet. Humans, said. There was confusion in his voice. What are humans doing here? Has knew about humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humans, though most did not think much of them. They were a young species. They had only been traveling among the stars for 300 years. Their technology was primitive. Their bodies were fragile. They lived for less than a century, which was barely a blink of an eye to beings like the conclave. They were not important. They were not powerful. They were nothing. Perhaps they are lost, Has said. Perhaps they do not understand what they are facing. But as he watched, the 18 human ships moved into formation. They did not turn around. They did not run. They flew directly toward the Dominion fleet. On the bridge of the lead ship, a vessel called the Indomitable, Captain Dong stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was 43 years old. He had gray hair at his temples and lines around his eyes from years of smiling at bad jokes. He had a wife on Earth and 2 daughters who sent him video messages every week. He had promised them he would come home. He looked at the 400 enemy ships on his screen and knew he might not keep that promise. "Commander," he said, "what are our chances?" His second-in-command, a woman with sharp eyes and steady hands, checked her calculations. She was 38 years old. She had joined the fleet because she believed in protecting people who could not protect themselves. She had never expected to face odds like this. "If we fight conventionally, we have a 2.3% chance of survival," she said. "The Dominion outnumbers us 22 to 1. Their ships are larger, faster, and more heavily armed. By every measure, we cannot win." Dong nodded slowly. He had expected this answer. He had known the math before he gave the order to engage, but math was not everything. Numbers did not tell the whole story. "How long until the evacuation is complete?" he asked. 8 hours, sir." "And how long can we hold them?" Paused. She looked at her captain. She saw something in his eyes that she had seen before in other humans in other desperate moments. It was not hope. It was not courage. It was something harder to name, something that did not care about odds or calculations. "If we fight smart, maybe 3 hours," she said. "If we fight like humans, maybe longer." Dong smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "Then we fight like humans," he said. He pressed the communication button on his chair. "All ships, this is the captain, I will not lie to you. The enemy is stronger than us. They have more ships, more weapons, more everything. By all logic, we should turn around and run. No one would blame us. No one would call us cowards." He paused. On every ship in the fleet, soldiers and crew members listened. Some of them were young, barely out of training. Some of them were old, veterans of a dozen battles. All of them were afraid. All of them were human. "But there are 40 million people on that planet," Dawn continued. 40 million mothers and fathers, 40 million sons and daughters, 40 million people who woke up this morning thinking it was just another day. They did not ask for this war. They did not choose to be in the path of monsters. They are just people, and we are the only thing standing between them and death. In the engine room of the indomitable chief engineer looked up from his console. He was 51 years old. He had a daughter on 4. She was 7. Her name was So Young, and she was afraid of thunderstorms. He had promised to teach her to swim when he got back. On the weapons deck, Sergeant 1 checked his rifle for the 10th time. He was 35 years old. He had grown up poor on a mining colony. He had joined the military because it was the only way off that rock. He had never thought he would die for strangers he had never met. But as he listened to the captain's words, he realized he was okay with that. In the fighter bay, Lieutenant climbed into her cockpit. She was 26 years old. She was scared. Her hands were shaking. But she had made a choice a long time ago when she was just a little girl watching heroes on a screen. She had decided that she wanted to be someone worth remembering. Today, she would find out if she could. "I am not ordering you to die," Dong said. "I am asking you to live as hard as you can for as long as you can. I am asking you to buy time with everything you have. I am asking you to be human." He stood up from his chair. 47 minutes. That is how long Commander says we need to survive to give those people a chance. 47 minutes to change history. 47 minutes to show the galaxy what we are made of. He looked at the enemy fleet on his screen. 400 ships, millions of enemy soldiers, weapons that could crack planets. He smiled. 47 minutes is enough. All ships forward. Let us remind the universe why they should never corner a human. Far above in the Conclave observation station has watched the 18 tiny ships fly towards certain death. He waited for them to turn. He waited for them to realize their mistake. He waited for sanity to take hold. They did not turn. They flew faster. And for the first time in 12,000 years, has felt something cold crawl up his ancient spine. He did not know what it was. He would not understand it until much later. It was the beginning of fear. The first human ship exploded 17 minutes into the battle. Has watched it happen on the Conclave's observation screens. A small destroyer called the Morning Star took 3 direct hits from Dominion plasma cannons. Its shields failed. Its hull cracked open like an egg. 243 humans died in less than a second. The other 17 ships did not slow down. They did not retreat. They flew harder into the enemy formation. "This is madness," A whispered. "They must know they cannot win. Why do they not run?" Has did not answer. He was watching something he had never seen before in 12,000 years of existence. He was watching creatures choose death over survival. He was watching beings who knew they were going to die and decided it did not matter. The Conclave had studied war for longer than most species had existed. They had archives filled with combat data from 4,892 different civilizations. Every species they had ever observed followed the same basic rules. Survival came first. Victory came second. You did not throw away your life for nothing. You did not sacrifice yourself unless the math made sense. Humans, it seemed, had never learned those rules. On the Indomitable, the bridge shook from another impact. Sparks flew from a damaged console. A young officer fell from his chair, blood running down his face. Medics rushed to help him while the rest of the crew kept working. "Hull breach on Deck 7, someone shouted. "We have lost life support in sections 12 through 15. "Seal those sections," Commander ordered. Her voice was calm. Her hands were steady on her console. She had been awake for 19 hours, but she showed no sign of tiredness. "Redirect power to forward shields. We need to hold for another 30 minutes. "Commander, we have lost the brave sun and the iron will. The Silver Dawn is venting atmosphere. They are requesting permission to withdraw." Looked at Captain Dong. He was standing at the center of the bridge, watching the battle unfold on the main screen. His face was quiet. His eyes were focused. He looked like a man who had already accepted his death and moved past it. "Tell the Silver Dawn to fall back to the evacuation zone," he said. "They can provide cover for the transports. The rest of us will continue the attack." "Sir, if we lose more ships, we will not be able to maintain the formation." "Then we will fight without a formation. We will fight ship to ship. We will fight man to man if we have to." He turned to look at his crew. These people had followed him into hell. They had trusted him with their lives. He owed them honesty. "I will not pretend this is going to end well for us. Most of us are going to die today. But every minute we hold is another minute for those evacuation ships. Every second we buy is another child who gets to grow up. That is what we are fighting for. That is why we do not run." In the fighter bay, Lieutenant launched her small craft into the chaos of battle. Enemy ships filled her vision in every direction. Plasma fire lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. She had trained for 3 years to fly combat missions. Nothing had prepared her for this. Her squadron leader's voice crackled in her ear. "All fighters, target the enemy carrier's shield generators. If we can take down their shields, the Indomitable can hit their engines." "Sir, the carrier is surrounded by escort ships. We will never get through." "We do not need to get through. We just need to get close enough." Understood what he was saying. Her fighter was fast, but it was not strong. One good hit would destroy her. The only way to reach the carrier was to fly so fast and so crazy that the enemy could not track her. And the only way to guarantee the kill was to fly directly into the target. She thought about her mother. She thought about the small apartment where she had grown up. She thought about all the things she had wanted to do with her life. She was 26 years old. She had never been in love. She had never seen the oceans of Earth. She had never held a baby or planted a garden or watched a sunset with someone who made her heart beat faster. She was going to miss all of that. But somewhere on 4, there was a 26-year-old woman who might get to do those things because was here today. There was a little girl who might grow up to be a pilot. There was a mother who might live to see her. That was enough. It had to be enough. "Lieutenant moving to attack position," she said into her radio. Her voice did not shake. She was surprised by that. She pushed her engines to maximum and flew toward the enemy carrier. Far above the battle, has watched the small fighter on his screen. He tracked its path through the enemy formation. He saw it dodge and weave through plasma fire that should have killed it a dozen times. He saw it fly closer and closer to the massive carrier. "What is she doing?" I asked. "That fighter cannot survive a direct attack on a carrier." "She knows that," Has said quietly. Something strange was happening in his chest, some feeling he could not name. The fighter reached the carrier's shield generator. Enemy fire finally caught it. The small craft began to break apart. In the last seconds of her life, Lieutenant pressed the transmission button on her console. She did not scream, she did not pray. She sent targeting coordinates. Her fighter exploded against the carrier's shields. The shields flickered and died. Behind her, 3 more human fighters flew into the gap she had created and launched their missiles into the carrier's exposed engines. The carrier exploded. 2,000 enemy soldiers died. The Dominion formation broke apart in confusion. "She did it," I said. "That human gave her life to destroy a single ship." "No," Has said. His voice was strange even to his own ears. "She gave her life to give her friends a chance. The ship was just how she did it." On the Indomitable, the crew felt the shockwave from the carrier's destruction. For a moment, there was silence on the bridge. Then someone spoke. "Lieutenant is gone, sir. She took out the carrier." Captain Dong closed his eyes. He had known for 3 years. She had a laugh that filled rooms. She made terrible jokes. She always volunteered for the dangerous missions because she said it was not fair to ask others to take risks she would not take herself. He opened his eyes. There would be time to grieve later, if there was a later. "Mark her position," he said. "We will come back for her when this is over." On Deck 7, Sergeant 1 heard the news about through his radio. He was holding a breached corridor with 12 other soldiers. Enemy boarding parties were trying to fight their way through to the main reactor. If they reached it, the ship was finished. "Sergeant, we are running low on ammunition," one of his soldiers said. A young private named Sung Ho. He was 19 years old. This was his first battle. "Then we will make every shot count," one said. "And when we run out of bullets, we will use knives. And when our knives break, we will use our hands." "Sergeant, that is crazy." One smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had stopped caring about his own survival. "Kid, we are humans. Crazy is what we do." The enemy came again. One raised his rifle and started shooting. Behind him, the young private watched. He was terrified. His hands were shaking, but he did not run. None of them ran. In the Conclave observation station, Has watched these tiny humans fight against impossible odds. He watched them die. He watched them keep fighting. He watched them sacrifice themselves again and again for people they had never met. His probability matrices could not process what he was seeing. These creatures did not fight like they wanted to survive. They did not fight like they wanted to win. They fought like something worse than death waited for them if they failed. "What are they?" I asked. His voice was shaking. "What kind of species does this?" Has thought about that question. He had seen many species fight. He had seen brave soldiers and desperate warriors and noble champions. But he had never seen anything like this. He had never seen creatures who seemed to value other lives more than their own. "I do not know," he admitted, "but I think we should be afraid of the answer." On the main screen, another human ship exploded. The humans had lost 6 ships now. They had killed 47 enemy vessels. The math still said they could not win. The humans did not seem to care about the math. They kept fighting. The battle entered its 5th hour. 7 human ships were gone. The remaining 11 were damaged and burning. The Indomitable had lost half its crew. Fire burned in corridors that had once been clean and bright. Bodies lay in hallways where friends had walked just hours before. The ship was dying. Everyone on board knew it. But the evacuation transports were still flying. 23 million people had escaped 17 million more were still waiting. On the medical deck of the Indomitable, a woman named was performing surgery on a wounded soldier. She was 34 years old. She had become a doctor because she hated watching people suffer. She had joined the fleet because she believed soldiers deserved someone to put them back together after battles broke them apart. She had been awake for 31 hours. Her hands were covered in blood. Her back ached from bending over operating tables. She had already saved 14 lives today. She had lost 6. "Doctor," her assistant said, "the soldier on table 3 is not going to make it. His injuries are too severe." Looked at the man on table 3. He was young, maybe 24 years old. He had taken a piece of metal through his chest during an explosion. His heart was failing. His lungs were filling with blood. By every medical standard, he was already dead. "Keep him alive," said. "I am not finished with him." "Doctor, the resources we use on him could save 2 other patients." "I know the math." His voice was sharp. "I do not care about the math. He has a mother somewhere who is waiting for him to come home. He has a life he has not finished living. We do not get to decide he is not worth saving." She turned back to her current patient and continued working. Her hands were shaking now. She was exhausted beyond words, but she did not stop. She could not stop. Every person on her table was someone's child. Every heartbeat she preserved was a victory against the darkness. 30 minutes later, the man on table 3 was still alive. Against all odds, against all logic, his heart kept beating. Had rebuilt his chest with spare parts and prayers. She had refused to let him die. "I do not understand how he survived," her assistant said. "He survived because we did not give up on him," answered. She was already moving to the next patient. There were always more patients. Then the alarm started screaming. "Boarding party detected on medical deck. All personnel prepare for combat." Looked up from her work. Through the window of the operating room, she could see enemy soldiers moving through the corridor. Dominion warriors in black armor, carrying weapons that could cut through steel. They were heading toward the main treatment area where 60 wounded soldiers and 200 civilians were waiting. There were no combat troops on the medical deck. They had all been sent to hold other parts of the ship. The only people here were doctors, nurses, and patients who could not fight. Thought about hiding. She thought about running. She thought about all the years of life she might have if she just found a place to wait until the battle was over. Then she thought about the children in the treatment area, the scared families who had come here because they believed they would be safe, the wounded soldiers who had already given so much and could not give any more. She picked up a surgical laser. It was a tool for cutting flesh and bone during operations. It was not a weapon, but it would have to do. "Everyone who can walk, get the patients to the emergency shelters," she told her staff. "Everyone who cannot walk, stay behind me." "Doctor, you cannot fight them. You are not a soldier." "No," agreed. "I am a doctor. I save lives. And right now, the only way to save these lives is to stand in front of them." She walked out of the operating room and into the corridor. The enemy soldiers saw her immediately. A small woman in a bloody medical uniform, holding a tool that was not meant for killing, standing between them and their targets. "Move," the lead soldier commanded. His voice was cold. His weapon was pointed at her chest. "You cannot stop us." "No," said. Her voice was shaking. Her knees were weak. She was more afraid than she had ever been in her life. "But I can slow you down, and maybe that will be enough." The soldier laughed. It was a cruel sound. "Enough for what? Your ship is dying, your fleet is destroyed. Nothing you do will change anything." "You are wrong," said. "Everything we do matters. Every second we buy matters. Every life we save matters. You might kill me. You might kill everyone on this ship, but you will not kill what we are fighting for. You cannot kill hope." The soldier raised his weapon, closed her eyes. She thought about her parents. She thought about the small village where she had grown up. She thought about all the patients she had saved over the years, all the lives that existed because she had refused to give up on them. She was not a soldier. She had never fired a weapon in combat, but she was human, and humans did not abandon the people they had sworn to protect. The sound of an explosion filled the corridor. Opened her eyes. The enemy soldier was on the ground. Behind him, a young man was climbing out of a broken ventilation shaft. He was holding grenades in one hand and dragging a rifle with the other. His arm was bent at a wrong angle. His face was covered in blood, but he was alive and he was fighting. "Private Sung-ho reporting for duty," he said. His voice cracked. He was 19 years old. He was terrified. "Sorry I am late, doctor. I got lost." More enemy soldiers were coming. Sung-ho raised his rifle and started shooting. His broken arm made it hard to aim, but he did not let that stop him. He stood in front of the patients behind her and he fought. "You should run," he told her between shots. "Get the patients out. I will hold them here." "You cannot hold them alone." "Maybe not, but I can try." Looked at this young man, this child who was barely old enough to vote, standing against an army with a broken arm and a borrowed rifle. She thought about what it meant to be brave. She thought about what it meant to be human. "Then we will try together," she said. She raised her surgical laser. "Tell me where to aim." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Dong received the report about the medical deck. He heard about the doctor who had stood against enemy soldiers with nothing but a surgical tool. He heard about the young private who had crawled through ventilation shafts with a broken arm to save strangers. He felt something tight in his chest, pride maybe, or grief, or both. "The medical deck is secure," Commander reported. "Private Sung-ho killed 9 enemy soldiers before reinforcements arrived. The doctor helped him hold the line." Casualties. Sung-ho is badly wounded. He will live, but he may lose the arm. The doctor refused to leave his side until he was in surgery. Dong nodded. He added 2 more names to the list of heroes he would remember for the rest of his life, however long that might be. "How is the evacuation proceeding?" 31 million evacuated, 9 million remaining. We need 2 more hours. 2 more hours. Dong looked at the tactical display. 4 of his ships were still combat capable. 3 more were damaged but fighting. The Dominion still had over 200 vessels. 2 more hours might as well be 200 years. "Then we give them 2 more hours," he said. "Signal the fleet. We are going to push forward." "Sir, if we push forward, we will lose more ships." "I know," Dong's voice was quiet, "but we are not fighting to survive. We are fighting to save. Those are different things." He stood up from his chair and looked at his crew. These people had been with him through everything. They had followed him into battles that should have killed them. They had trusted him with their lives. Now he was asking them to give those lives away. "I am proud of all of you," he said. "Whatever happens next, I want you to know that. You are the best crew I have ever served with. You are the best people I have ever known." Commander looked at him. She had known him for 10 years. She had seen him laugh at bad jokes and cry at sad movies. She had seen him be strong when everyone else was falling apart. She had never seen him look like this before, like a man who had already said goodbye. "Captain," she said, "it has been an honor." "The honor was mine," Dong replied. He turned to face the main screen. The enemy fleet was waiting. "All ships, this is the captain. Begin final advance, for 4, for humanity, for everyone we love." 11 human ships flew toward 200 enemy vessels. They did not hesitate. They did not slow down. In the Conclave observation station has watched them go. He had witnessed many things in his 12,000 years. He had seen courage and cowardice. He had seen triumph and tragedy. He had never seen anything like this. "They are going to die," said, "all of them." "Yes," has agreed. His voice sounded strange. "They know that." "Then why do they not stop?" Has thought about that question for a long time. He thought about the doctor who had stood against an army with a surgical tool. He thought about the young private who had fought with a broken arm. He thought about all the humans who had chosen to die so that strangers might live. "Because," he said slowly, "they are carrying something heavier than their own lives. They are carrying 40 million people who are counting on them. They are carrying the hope of a world, and that weight is more important to them than survival." On the medical deck, held Sung-ho's hand as the anesthesia took him to sleep. He was going to lose his arm. He was going to wake up different than he had been before. But he was going to wake up, because she had refused to let him die. "You did good, kid," she whispered. "You did so good." Outside, the battle continued. Ships exploded, people died. But on 4 evacuation transports kept flying. Families kept running to safety. Children kept living. That was what the humans were dying for. That was why they did not stop. The Conclave had rules. They had followed these rules for longer than most species had existed. They did not interfere in the affairs of mortals. They did not take sides in wars. They watched. They recorded. They preserved knowledge for eternity. That was their purpose. That was their way. But as he watched the 17th hour of the battle for 4, he felt those ancient rules begin to crack. The human fleet had been reduced to 11 ships. No 10. No 9. They were dying faster now. The Dominion had adapted to their tactics. The enemy knew that humans would sacrifice themselves for impossible kills. So the enemy had started spreading their formation, making it harder for the humans to take multiple ships down with single attacks. It did not matter. The humans kept attacking anyway. On the Indomitable, Chief Engineer was fighting a different kind of battle. The ship's reactor was failing. Damage from enemy fire had cracked the containment system. Radiation was leaking into the engineering section. The computer estimated that anyone in that section would receive a lethal dose within 30 minutes. Was 51 years old. He had been an engineer for 30 years. He had fixed problems that other people said were impossible. He had kept ships running when they should have been dead. He was very, very good at his job. He was also a father. His daughter So-young lived on 4. She was 7 years old. She had her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn spirit. She was afraid of thunderstorms. She loved to dance. She wanted to be a pilot when she grew up, just like the heroes she watched on her. Had promised to teach her to swim when he got back from this mission. He looked at the reactor readings. The containment system needed manual repair. Someone had to go into the radiation zone and physically reconnect the broken circuits. The computer could not do it. The repair drones were all destroyed. It had to be a person. "Chief, the radiation levels are lethal," his assistant said. "Anyone who goes in there will die." "I know. We could abandon engineering, redirect power from other sections." "No, if we lose the reactor, we lose main engines. If we lose main engines, we cannot keep up with the battle. If we cannot keep up with the battle, we cannot protect the evacuation. Chief, there has to be another way." Smiled, it was a tired smile, a final smile. "There is not, and that is okay." He picked up his toolkit. "Tell the captain he has 12 more minutes of full power. That is the best I can give him." "Chief, wait, please. There must be something else we can do." "There is. You can seal this section after I go in. Keep the radiation from spreading. Keep this ship alive as long as possible." Paused at the door to the radiation zone. "And if you ever meet my daughter, tell her that her father kept his promise. Tell her I gave her time to grow up." He stepped through the door. It sealed behind him. For the next 11 minutes worked in conditions that would kill him. The radiation burned his skin. It damaged his organs. It broke down his cells one by one. But his hands were steady. His mind was clear. He had a job to do. He had a daughter to save. He reconnected the last circuit at minute 10. The reactor stabilized. Full power was restored. Sat down against the wall of the reactor room. He was too tired to stand. He was too tired for anything now. But he was smiling. So-young would grow up. She would learn to swim. She would become a pilot. She would live all the years that he was giving up. That was enough. That was everything. On the bridge, Captain Dong received the report. He stood in silence for a long moment. "Gave us 12 more minutes," Commander said quietly. He knew what it would cost. He had a daughter on 4. Yes, 7 years old. Dong closed his eyes. Another name, another hero, another person who had traded their tomorrows for someone else's future. "How many evacuees remain?" 4 million. We need 40 more minutes." 40 minutes. The fleet had 8 ships left. The Dominion still had 170. Every calculation said it was impossible. Then we give them 40 minutes, Dong said. His voice did not shake. Signal the fleet, we are making our final push. In the communications room, Officer Mira was preparing a different kind of message. She was 30 years old. She had always been good with words. She believed that talking could solve problems that fighting could not. "What are you doing?" her colleague asked. "I am broadcasting a surrender demand to the Dominion fleet." "Are you crazy? We cannot surrender. The evacuation is not complete." "We are not going to surrender." Mira finished her message and hit the transmit button. "We are going to offer them a chance to stop." The message went out across all frequencies. It reached every Dominion ship in the battle zone. It was simple and direct. "This is the human vessel Indomitable. We are offering you one chance to withdraw. We do not want to kill you. We do not hate you, but we will not let you hurt the people we are protecting. You have seen what we are willing to do. You know we will not stop. You know we will fight until the last one of us is gone. So ask yourselves a question. Is this world worth the price you will pay to take it? Is it worth the ships you have already lost? Is it worth the ships you will lose before we are finished? We are offering you peace. We are offering you a chance to live. Take it, turn around, go home, find a world that is not protected by humans." The Dominion did not respond with words. They responded with fire. 100 ships opened up on the human fleet simultaneously. 3 more human vessels exploded. Mira watched them die. She did not regret sending the message. Someone had to try. Someone had to offer a hand before offering a fist. That was what being human meant. "They refused," her colleague said. "I know." Mira stood up from her console. "I had to try, now we fight." 5 ships remained. The Indomitable was barely holding together. Captain Dong looked at the tactical display. The Dominion flagship was at the center of their formation. It was the biggest ship in their fleet. It was the command center for their entire operation. If that ship fell, the Dominion would lose coordination. They would fall into chaos. The evacuation might have time to complete. "Commander," Dong said, "calculate a collision course with the enemy flagship." The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what he was asking. "Sir," said carefully, "if we collide with the flagship, we will destroy both vessels. No one on this ship will survive." "I know. There may be another way." "There is not, you know there is not." Dong turned to face his crew. These people had followed him through everything. They had trusted him completely. Now he was asking for the last thing they had to give. "I am not ordering this. I am asking. Anyone who wants to leave can take the escape pods. There is no shame in surviving. There is no dishonor in wanting to see tomorrow." No one moved. No one spoke. Then Commander stood up from her chair. She walked to the captain's side and looked at the crew. "You heard him," she said. "Anyone who wants to leave can go. The rest of us have work to do." The helmsman adjusted the ship's course. The weapons officer armed all remaining missiles. The communications officer sent a final message to the other 4 human ships. "Indomitable is making an attack run on the enemy flagship. Support us if you can. Complete the mission if we fail, for humanity, for everyone we love." All 5 ships turned toward the Dominion flagship. All 5 ships accelerated to maximum speed. Far above the battle has watched what was happening. He had observed countless wars. He had witnessed species fight to the last soldier, but he had never seen anything like this. "They are going to ram the flagship," said. His voice was shaking. "They are sacrificing their entire fleet to kill one ship." "No," Has said. "They are sacrificing their fleet to buy time. The flagship is just the price." "But why? Why would they do this? Their lives are so short already. Why throw them away for strangers?" Has thought about that question. He thought about it for a long time, and slowly he began to understand. The conclave had evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago. They had transcended death. They had become eternal, and in becoming eternal they had lost something. They had forgotten what it meant to love something more than existence itself. They had forgotten what it meant to hold something so precious that you would gladly die to protect it. They had forgotten the terrible, beautiful weight of being mortal. Humans had never forgotten. Humans lived every day knowing that their time was limited. They loved knowing that they would lose. They built knowing that everything would fall. And because of that, they understood something the gods had lost. Some things were worth more than living. Some things were worth everything. The Indomitable hit the Dominion flagship at full speed. Both ships disappeared in a ball of fire that lit up the stars. Captain Dong died thinking of his daughters. Commander died thinking of the people they had saved. Officer Mira died knowing she had tried to offer peace before war. Everyone on that ship died knowing that their deaths meant something. The Dominion flagship was gone. The enemy fleet fell into chaos. The remaining 4 human ships fought on, buying time, buying minutes, buying futures. On 4, the last evacuation transports lifted off. 40 million people had escaped. 40 million lives had been saved. In the Conclave observation station, has felt something break inside him. Something ancient and cold and eternal crumbled like dust. He felt something new take its place, something he had not felt for 8,000 years. Tears. He was weeping for creatures who lived less than a century. He was weeping for beings he had once considered insignificant. He was weeping because he had witnessed something so beautiful and terrible that his ancient heart could not contain it. "What do we do now?" asked. Has wiped his eyes. He looked at the burning wreckage where the Indomitable had been. He looked at the 4 remaining human ships, still fighting, still refusing to give up. "Now," he said, "we remember. We remember what they taught us today. We remember what it means to love something worth dying for." He turned away from the observation window. "And then we decide if we still have the courage to step forward." The battle ended 3 hours after the Indomitable fell. The Dominion fleet, broken and confused without their flagship, scattered into the darkness between stars. They had come with 400 ships. They left with less than 90. They had expected an easy victory over a weak colony world. They found something else entirely. Of the 18 human ships that had fought that day, 4 survived. Of the 12,000 humans who had stood against the Dominion, 3,000 remained. Every survivor was wounded. Every survivor had lost friends. Every survivor would carry scars that would never fully heal. But 40 million people on 4 were alive. 40 million people who would have been slaves or corpses were now free. 40 million futures had been purchased with the blood and courage of strangers. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. 3 days after the battle, Has did something he had not done in 600 years. He left the Conclave observation station. He descended to the surface of 4. He walked among mortals. The planet was still in chaos. Refugee camps covered the fields where crops had grown just days before. Hospitals were overflowing with wounded soldiers and traumatized civilians. The sound of crying filled the air, mixing with the sound of relief and gratitude and grief. Has walked through it all. He wore a physical form that he had not used in centuries. It felt strange. It felt limiting, but he needed to be here. He needed to see. He found what he was looking for in a field hospital at the edge of the main city. Commander, now Captain, was standing beside a bed in the intensive care unit. She was holding the hand of a young soldier who was connected to machines that beeped and hummed with artificial life. The soldier's name was Jinwoo. He was 23 years old. He had been a corporal on one of the other ships in the fleet. During the final battle, he had thrown himself in front of a plasma bolt that was aimed at a child. A stranger's child. A little girl he had never met and would never know. The bolt had torn through his chest. By all medical standards, he should have died instantly. But humans, as had learned, did not follow medical standards. Jinwoo had survived long enough to reach the hospital. He had survived the surgery. Now he was fighting a different battle, one measured in heartbeats and breaths. "You are the one they call Has," Captain said without turning around. "The ancient observer, the witness who never interferes." "Yes. Why are you here?" It was a simple question. Has had been asking himself the same thing since he had left the observation station. "I needed to understand," he said. "I needed to see with my own eyes what I witnessed from above." "And what did you witness?" "I witnessed your captain fly his ship into the heart of the enemy. I witnessed your engineer sacrifice himself so that his daughter might live. I witnessed your doctor stand against soldiers with nothing but a surgical tool. I witnessed your young people die for old people they had never met. I witnessed madness that my ancient mind cannot process." Finally turned to look at him. Her eyes were tired. Her face was lined with exhaustion and grief. But there was something in her gaze that Has had never seen before, something that burned like a star. "That is not madness," she said. "That is love." "I do not understand." "No, you do not," looked back at Jinwoo. This boy threw himself in front of a plasma bolt for a child he did not know. He did not stop to think about it. He did not calculate the odds. He just moved. Because in that moment, protecting that child was more important than protecting himself. But why? His life had value. His future had potential. Why trade all of that for a stranger? Because her life had value too. Her future had potential too. And he decided that her potential was worth more than his certainty. Smiled. It was a sad smile, but it was real. "That is what you do not understand about us. You think we sacrifice ourselves because we do not value our lives. That is wrong. We sacrifice ourselves because we value other lives more. We know exactly what we are giving up. We choose to give it up anyway." Has stood in silence for a long time. He thought about everything he had witnessed. He thought about the captain who had smiled before leading his ship into death. He thought about the engineer who had walked into radiation so his daughter could grow up. He thought about the pilot who had sent targeting coordinates with her last breath. "Your species lives for less than a century," he said slowly. "That is barely a moment by our standards. How can creatures who live so briefly care so much about anything?" "Because we live so briefly," answered. "Every moment matters to us. Every choice matters. We do not have eternity to fix our mistakes or make up for our failures. We have one life, one chance, and we have to decide what that life is worth." She looked at Jinwoo again. This boy decided his life was worth saving a child. That was his choice. That was his answer. Jinwoo's heart monitor beeped steadily. His chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. He was alive. Against all odds, against all logic, he was alive. "He is going to survive," said. "The doctors say it is a miracle. They say they have never seen anyone fight so hard to stay alive." "Why does he fight?" "Because dying would mean his sacrifice was wasted. Because living means he might save someone else someday. Because humans do not give up," looked at Has. "Ever." That night Jinwoo opened his eyes. He did not know where he was at first. Everything hurt. His chest felt like it had been torn apart and put back together wrong. But he was alive. He could feel his heart beating. Captain was still there. She had not left his side. "Welcome back, Corporal," she said. "Did we win?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, we won. The little girl, the one I. She is alive. She is on a transport ship heading to a refugee center. Her mother has been asking about you. She wants to thank you." Jinwoo closed his eyes. Tears leaked from the corners. He was too weak to wipe them away. "Good," he whispered. "That is good." Has watched this exchange from the doorway. He watched a young man cry with relief because a stranger's child was safe. He watched a captain hold a soldier's hand like he was family. He understood something then, something he should have understood 12,000 years ago. The Conclave had stepped back from mortal affairs because they believed they had evolved beyond such things. They believed that transcendence meant leaving behind the messy emotions of physical beings. They believed that eternity was the goal, and that caring about temporary things was a weakness. They were wrong. The humans were not weak because they cared about things that would end. They were strong because they cared anyway. They loved knowing they would lose. They built knowing everything would fall. They fought knowing they would die. And in that desperate, beautiful defiance, they found something the gods had lost. They found meaning. Has returned to the conclave the next day. He stood before the assembled gods for the first time in 3,000 years. He spoke for hours. He told them everything he had witnessed, everything he had learned. "We have watched the universe for eons," he said. "We have seen empires rise and fall, stars born and die, species ascend to glory and descend to dust. We believed we understood the shape of existence. We believed we had transcended the need for purpose. We believed we were beyond the struggles of mortal beings." He paused. The silence in the great hall was absolute. "We understood nothing. These humans, these brief, burning creatures, they carry something we lost so long ago we forgot it ever existed. They call it many things: duty, honor, love, but I witnessed it on 4, and I will tell you its true name." The conclave leaned forward. "It is the willingness to become a memory so that others may have a future. It is the choice to be a shield, knowing you will shatter. It is the mad, beautiful, terrifying conviction that some lives matter more than your own, not because yours is worthless, but because you have decided what it is worth." Has looked out at the ancient beings who had shaped galaxies. "We stepped back because we forgot how to step forward. We became observers because we forgot how to be participants. The humans never learned to step back. And that, my eternal brothers and sisters, is why even gods should fear them. Not because they can destroy us, but because they remind us of everything we have lost." The conclave voted that day. For the first time in recorded history, the gods of the galaxy chose a side. They chose humanity. 50 years later, a memorial stands on 4. It is carved from black granite that was taken from the wreckage of human ships. On its surface are the names of every human who fell that day, every pilot, every soldier, every engineer, every doctor, every scared young person who chose courage over survival. At the base of the memorial, a simple inscription reads, "They came from the stars. They stay to be our sky." Children play in the fields around it. They are human and alien and everything in between. They grow up hearing stories of 18 ships that held the line against 400. They learn about Captain Dong, who flew into the heart of the enemy. They learn about Lieutenant, who sent targeting coordinates with her last breath. They learn about Engineer, who gave his life so his daughter could swim. And somewhere in the eternal halls of the conclave has watches them. He watches the children grow. He watches them make choices. He watches them love and lose and love again. He no longer just observes. He participates. He cares. Because 12,000 years of existence taught him nothing compared to what he learned in 18 hours on 4. Because watching humans die taught him how to live. The gods stepped back once. They believed they had evolved beyond the need for mortal concerns. They believed that eternity made them wise. The humans taught them otherwise. The gods will never step back again. And somewhere, in a universe that is a little brighter than it was before, the children of 4 look up at the stars and dream of becoming pilots. They dream of becoming doctors. They dream of becoming people worth remembering. They dream of being human. That is the greatest gift the fallen gave them. Not survival, not freedom, but the example of what it means to live a life that matters. That is why even gods step back. Because when humans tread the battlefield, they leave footprints that last forever.